WAOH is brought to you in part by Jumpstart Video, online at jumpstartvideo.com.
Welcome back, everyone. I am talking with another prospective school board candidate, Gwen Bryant. Hi, Gwen. How are you today?
Hi, how are you?
I am just fine.
Good.
And for someone who has not met you yet, we want to just find out a little bit about you. Tell me about yourself.
Well, I'll try to do that in quick. I've been practicing 2 minutes.
Yes, that sounds good. Give us the 2-minute version.
So I have been in the field of education for over 30 years.
Okay.
And I started that journey first as a teacher in Canton City Schools for about 2 years, and then moved into Akron. That's where I spent the bulk of my years in education. And in that role, I taught grades K through up to 5. But primarily, I spent most of my years in kindergarten as an educator. Then I came out of the classroom, went to central office, and worked as a school improvement coach, where I was in charge of 15 of the, at that time, 30 schools. And they were in the Kenmore cluster and then in the Bookville cluster.
Okay.
And my job was to help coach those schools and help them to gain those performance scores in their school improvement plan. So most of them did well during that time. Then I left that and then went back into the schools because I wanted to go back into the schools, and I went in as a literacy coach. And so I followed 2 principals primarily in that time, and those schools were Perkins and at that time Roswell Kent. And in that was to help them turn their test scores around, and we did that in both places. Then on the side, I always did professional development in the district, and where I was helping teachers to learn more strategies and things and about education and about instruction. And then I was hired later as the person really do the same thing as a professional developer or staff developer is what my job is called, or consultant. And so now I work for a national consulting firm where I travel all over the country training teachers, principals, superintendents, and directors of instruction. And so out of that 13, this is going on my 13th year of doing that, I've been in 45 of the 50 states. So I've seen all sorts of schools.
So why do you want to be on the APS School Board?
Well, it is a job that I always, you know, one of my things about me is that I'm a person who always has to feel as though I'm contributing. And so part of that is I wanted to come back to Akron because this was a school district that more or less raised me.
Yeah.
I came into the school district when I was 22 years old, and all the things that I'm doing now nationally really came from Akron. So I wanted to come back to give back to the school district who trained me the skills that I've learned now more effectively and more dealing with schools all over, and come back and have a voice to help those schools to continue in their instruction and in school performance.
Okay. So what do you think is working well in APS schools right now?
There's a lot that's working in Akron Public Schools. I just looked at because I'm a nerd, and I looked at data, and that was part of what I did as the process. Yes, I'm a data person. So I decided to go and look at the schools as far as their state report cards, because those just came out. And I looked at the ratings and where they are. Now, are they where we would like them to be? No. But many of the schools are performing as far as their progress, because there's 5 indicators. In their progress, they've all basically have improved in those areas. That means looking at all their subgroups and how they're looking at that. I think also what's working is we have good educators. I mean, when I go walk in an Akron public school, there are still educators that I knew, that I worked with, that I may have coached, that I knew were good teachers and good administrators then, who are still here trying to do what's best for schools. Many of the new buildings that were starting to come in place before I left here are just beautiful, wonderful learning environments where students can grow. So there's a lot that's going on well. And we also have schools that people want to come in from outside the district, like the early college school, like Miller South. We are attracting those parents who want to come here. So we have a lot to be proud of.
Yes. Okay. What conditions are necessary for learning?
So you just touched into my wheelhouse.
Tell me about it.
So my wheelhouse. So when you talk about what's the conditions of learning, the conditions of learning exist in a lot of things. So you're talking about instruction is the main thing, because that's what a school is for. How do we provide rigorous instruction for students? How do we engage in giving them the skills that they need to take no matter what job they take? There's some basic skills that most employers want the students to have. How do we provide those opportunities and plan instructions and tasks to do that? How do we provide classrooms that are engaging, that kids will maybe not like the learning, but say, yes, I want to actively and critically thought, not just the interest, but critically think, because that's really what we're responsible for, is teaching students how to think. And then looking at how do we all move together to fill those gaps, so that no matter where those students' issues is, that we as a school, as a district, as a community is trying to work so that every student at least has those keys when they walk out of Akron Public Schools, to take those keys to go where they need to go and be able to have those opportunities that's given to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, what should education look like in the future? We're thinking 10 years right now.
Well, that's a hard one to guess, because there's a lot of things that when I was, even 5 years ago, I didn't even know in existence. But there's some basic skills that if we're going to give students that we want them to have, so that no matter where they journey and wherever they land, that we want to make sure they have. Part of those are, how do you communicate, and those interpersonal skills. That essentially, how do you get along with others? The other one is, how do you think, critically think and interact? How do you work in groups? Can you write? Can you read? Are you able to interpret information that's given to you? Do you know where to go find that information to solve problems? So if we can give students those basic skills, I wouldn't call them basic, I think they're just good skills. And if you look at reports of what employers want, those are skills that they want. That's the person they want to bring into their company. If we can do that, no matter what the jobs or whatever it looks like in 10 years, I think we've been successful.
Okay. What is your most current grassroots involvement with APS right now?
Well, because I left the district, I won't say that I'm in a school working and doing that. But I still have relationships with educators who will call me and say, I can remember a couple of weeks ago, one teacher that I used to work with said, hey, can you take time and look at this lesson plan I just wrote? Or I have this idea of how to do that. I still have those relationships. I still work with teachers to help them to improve in their practice. My son, who has just decided to go into education, working with that. And I'm always working with educators. Probably most of the people I'm around in my little bubble are educators. So I'm not in a school working or doing those things, but I'm still maybe having those touch points with people all over. And then when people ask me about things in the schools, generally I can give an answer to it.
Where do you see inequity within APS, and how could you address it as a school board member?
Well, the role of a school board member is not to come in and manage the schools. We're a governing piece where we give policies, and we're a critical connection between the schools and the community and the staff and the students. So in that regards, what I would like to see that would happen with the schools in particular and to move forward is that we provide opportunities that kids will say, here is what we have. Like, for instance, we have a school that is a school that's going to be a STEAM school or STEM school. So the STEAM is the arts,
A for arts, yep.
The arts is put it. So there's a little bit. So when just letting people know that.
Yeah.
But in that is, instead of having just at school where those kids go, why can't we at times provide units of study that teachers and train teachers on them and provide those units that at least twice in a school year a kid or a student has an opportunity to go through that unit of STEAM and might go, wow, I like that. How can I get into that school? Or making sure that students have opportunity in career tech that maybe is not there at the school or in the pathways, but making sure those things are more aware of, that kids have the opportunity so they can say, wow, that's a choice. I might want to do that. So those are some of the things that I would like to see done.
Would you have a plan if a tiny minority of people work to ban books, librarians, or libraries?
I don't believe in banning books. I don't know what else to say about that. So I don't believe, because books are just another resource. So I could go online and read the same thing I want to see with a book. I can watch a TV show, or I can go on YouTube and watch a book. As a kid who loved the library and spent most of my time in the library, I don't believe in banning books. I do believe that parents have a choice about the things, and that those are conversations. How do we create those conversations between the teacher and why that's being used, and then maybe coming up with some alternatives. But I don't believe in banning books. I don't know what to say more about that.
All right. What background or experience do you have with special education and or disabilities?
So I taught for 2 summers at a school, and it's a private school that has to deal with kids with learning disabilities. And the reason I did is because I found out when my son was age 6 was dyslexic. And so at the time, as an educator, because I didn't have any coursework about that, and even at that point, people still are confused about what does dyslexia mean. It's really a processing piece. But I didn't know what that looked like. And so I was concerned that, is my son going to be able to read? Is he going to be able to develop those literacy skills? So with that, I learned, went and sort of went to the school, taught summer school there, although I still taught in Akron. But in the summers, I would go there and teach just so I could learn about what's teaching kids with dyslexia. So my experience is I'm an advocate for kids with special needs, and when we put them in different groups, there's different pockets of what that means is, but it's really figuring out that they learn differently. And how do we fill, just like any other gap that students might have, how do we come up with services to wrap around to give them fill in those gaps? Most of the time, it's just making some few tweaks, like giving them more extra time, giving them a time where they could take a test without being in a classroom, having some read the test to them, or read the subject to them, or making adjustments in the assignments. So it's that willingness to say, here's where this student is, and how do I make those changes to fill the gaps?
What will you do to ensure that every student with disabilities will have meaningful inclusion within their school environment with peers?
Well, again, just filling in those gaps and saying where's the best place for the student? How can we work as a team? It's really a team approach, and most schools do that anyway. They have an IEP team, they come up with a plan, but ensuring that the plan is part of that, making sure every voice is in that, not only just the parents and the teachers, but bringing, if you can, the student in it, because the student can give you a lot of information about how I learn, or here's the things I like, and making it more of a team approach to fill in those gaps.
Great. Who's responsible for education here in Akron?
I think I heard we all are, and I agree with that. We all are. So it is not a separate person as a superintendent. It's not the central office. It's not just the teachers, but all of us are responsible for what goes on in the schools. And as a result of it, we all need to take more ownership and make sure we know what's going on in schools so that we can hold everybody accountable, even ourselves.
Gwen, thank you.
Thank you,
Will you
Sarah.
leave us with some words of wisdom for our APS students?
Yes, so if I was looking at them directly, like I'm looking at you, I would tell them to take these opportunities. Learning is a wonderful thing. And taking an opportunity to get every key, I view each step in education as you get a key. and hopefully when you walk out the door, you have a ring of keys that you can walk to the door and unlock all those opportunities. So if I could speak to any student, I'd say, take this opportunity. This is a gift that we as citizens have granted to you, and take those opportunities to learn.
Absolutely. Okay, well, thank you so much. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me here and giving me a chance to introduce myself to some and reintroducing myself to others.
And if anybody wants to contact you, is there a way they can do that?
I have a website. It's called VoteGwenBryant.com. I'm working on my Facebook account. It's still there, but I haven't launched it yet. It's the same thing as VoteGwenBryant.com.
Perfect.
And I can give you my email if you want to share that at the end.
Great.
And I answer all emails.
Sounds perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much, Gwen.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. We will have more candidate interviews coming up.